The shadow in the Carpathians. In the remote village of Megara, nestled deep within the Carpathian mountains, superstition ran as deep as the rivers that cut through the rugged terrain. The villagers lived in perpetual fear of the unseen, their lives shaped by ancient tales of dark entities that stalked the night. Among these stories, one name was whispered with palpable dread: Lucian Dragomir. Lucian had once been a beloved figure in Megara, a charismatic young man with a penchant for helping those in need. But his life had been cut tragically short in a violent encounter with bandits that left him mutilated and unrecognizable. The villagers mourned his death, but their grief was soon overshadowed by an insidious fear. Strange occurrences began to plague the village. Livestock found drained of blood, children falling ill with inexplicable symptoms, and sightings of a shadowy figure prowling the outskirts of town. One cold, moonless night, Anka, a widow with a reputation for being unusually perceptive, experienced a chilling visitation. She awoke to the feeling of an oppressive presence in her room. Struggling to breathe, she saw the silhouette of a man at the foot of her bed, his eyes glowing with an unnatural red hue. She recognized him instantly: Lucian. But he was no longer the man she remembered. He was a vampire, a strigoi, risen from the grave to spread terror and death. The following morning, Anka confided in Father Petru, the village priest. Father Petru was a man of faith but also of practical wisdom, well versed in the lore of their ancestors. He listened to Anka's harrowing tale and knew they had to act quickly. The villagers gathered in the church, and by candlelight, Father Petru recounted the old rituals to combat a vampire. With trembling hands, they exhumed Lucian's grave, finding his body eerily preserved, as though he had been merely sleeping. They drove a wooden stake through his heart and sprinkled the grave with holy water, believing this would end the nightmare. For a time, peace seemed to return to Megara. However, the tranquility was short-lived. A month later, strange markings began appearing on doorsteps, symbols of ancient origin that no one could decipher. Young Ileana, the village blacksmith's daughter, was found wandering the woods in a trance, whispering Lucian's name. The villagers grew restless, their fear transforming into paranoia. One stormy night, Father Petru himself vanished, leaving behind a cryptic note warning of a greater darkness yet to come. Anka, driven by a mixture of fear and curiosity, ventured into the old church and discovered a hidden chamber beneath the altar. There, she found ancient texts and relics, evidence of a forgotten pact between the village ancestors and an otherworldly force. As she delved deeper into the secrets of the past, Anka uncovered a truth more horrifying than she could have imagined. Lucian's transformation was not a mere act of vengeance but the fulfillment of an ancient curse. The village of Megara was built on land that had once been consecrated to a dark entity, a creature of sin that thrived on innocent blood. Lucian was but the first of many to rise, a harbinger of a greater evil lying dormant, waiting for the right moment to awaken fully. Anka knew she had to warn the others, but as she emerged from the hidden chamber, she felt a cold hand grip her shoulder. Turning slowly, she came face to face with Lucian, his eyes gleaming with malevolent intelligence. "You cannot stop what has already begun," he whispered, his voice a blend of sorrow and malice. "We are bound by blood and darkness, and the shadow and the Carpathians will consume us all." As dawn approached, Anka's scream echoed through the village, a harrowing reminder that the true horror had only just begun. The shadow and the Carpathians, Party Anka's scream roused the villagers from their restless sleep. They rushed to the church, finding her unconscious on the floor, a faint bite mark on her neck. Father Petru was nowhere to be seen. As the villagers gathered around Anka, whispering prayers and casting fearful glances, they knew that their fight against the darkness was far from over. When Anka awoke, she recounted her encounter with Lucian, detailing the hidden chamber and the ancient curse. The village elders, skeptical yet desperate, decided to explore the hidden chamber themselves. They found the ancient texts and relics, confirming Anka's story. It was clear that Megara was facing a force much older and more malevolent than they had ever imagined. Determined to uncover the truth and save their village, the elders pored over the ancient texts, deciphering fragments of an old prophecy. The prophecy spoke of a blood moon, a night when the curse would reach its zenith, allowing the dark entity to fully awaken and unleash its wrath. The blood moon was just days away. As the village prepared for the impending doom, a stranger arrived in Magura. He was a tall, gaunt man with piercing blue eyes and an air of mystery. Introducing himself as Dragos, he claimed to be a scholar of the occult, drawn to Magura by the same ancient texts that the villagers had discovered. Though suspicious of outsiders, the elders reluctantly accepted his help, hoping his knowledge might give them an edge against the darkness. Dragos proved invaluable, guiding the villagers through complex rituals and revealing hidden meanings within the texts. He explained that the only way to break the curse was to perform a ritual at the heart of the forest, where the land had been consecrated to the dark entity. The ritual required a sacrifice of a willing soul to confront the entity and sever the ties binding it to Magura. As the blood moon approached, tensions ran high. Volunteers for the sacrifice were scarce, and fear gripped the hearts of the villagers. In a surprising turn, Anka stepped forward, her resolve hardened by her encounter with Lucian. She was willing to give her life to save the village, but Dragos warned that the ritual was perilous, and failure would doom them all. On the night of the blood moon, a somber procession made its way into the forest, led by Dragos and Anka. The villagers followed, clutching torches and holy symbols. At the designated spot, an ancient stone altar, Dragos began the ritual, chanting in a forgotten tongue. The air grew thick with malevolent energy, and the ground trembled as the dark entity stirred. Suddenly, the shadows coalesced into a horrifying form, a monstrous figure with glowing eyes and elongated fangs. Lucian's spirit, twisted and corrupted, emerged from the darkness, his face a mask of anguish and fury. He lunged at Anka, but she stood her ground, chanting the incantation Dragos had taught her. As the ritual reached its climax, a blinding light engulfed the clearing, and the entity let out a deafening roar. The villagers watched in awe and terror as the dark form began to disintegrate, its power waning. But just as they thought victory was within their grasp, Dragos revealed his true intentions. With a sinister grin, Dragos raised his arms, absorbing the dark energy into himself. He had not come to save the village, but to usurp the entity's power for his own. The villagers, realizing they had been deceived, tried to intervene, but it was too late. Dragos transformed into a being of immense power, a new dark force bound to the land. Anka, weak but determined, confronted Dragos. She realized that the only way to stop him was to finish the ritual and sacrifice herself. With her last breath, she completed the incantation, and a brilliant light consumed both her and Dragos. The villagers shielded their eyes, and when the light faded, both Anka and Dragos were gone, leaving only the charred remains of the altar. In the aftermath, Magura was eerily silent. The curse seemed to have lifted, but the villagers knew that their victory was tenuous. The ancient texts warned that darkness could never be truly eradicated, only held at bay, and so they remained vigilant, guarding the secrets of the forest and honoring the memory of Anka, the brave soul who had given everything to protect them. Yet, as the years passed, whispers of a new evil began to spread. Strange sightings and unexplained deaths hinted that the dark entity's power had not been fully vanquished. A shadow loomed over Magura, a reminder that the fight against the darkness was never truly over. And in the depths of the forest, where the ancient altar once stood, the ground stirred as a new presence began to awaken, fueled by the lingering essence of the blood moon. The shadow in the Carpathians. Part 3 years had passed since the night of the blood moon, but the villagers of Magura remained haunted by the memory of what had transpired. Anka's sacrifice was revered, yet an uneasy calm persisted, a reminder that the dark forces were never truly gone. Rumors of a new evil began to take hold, and soon, the village faced another harrowing threat. One evening, as twilight descended upon Magura, a stranger arrived. He was a young man, pale and gaunt, with eyes that glimmered like the night sky. He introduced himself as Victor, a traveler seeking refuge. The villagers, wary of strangers but unable to turn him away, offered him shelter. Victor was quiet and mysterious, often disappearing into the forest at odd hours. Curious and uneasy, The villagers whispered among themselves, suspecting that he might be connected to the strange happenings. Livestock were found dead, their blood drained, and eerie howls echoed through the night. It was as if the shadows themselves had come alive. One night, Ileana, the blacksmith's daughter, who had once wandered the woods in a trance, was found standing at the edge of the village, her eyes vacant. She murmured about the awakening and the new darkness that would consume them all. The elders knew they had to act before the evil could fully take root. They turned to the ancient texts once more, searching for answers. Among the faded pages, they found a reference to the Varkalak, a creature even more terrifying than the Strigoi, born from the merging of a vampire's curse and a sorcerer's dark magic. The texts warned that the Varkalak could command shadows and feed on the souls of the living, growing stronger with each victim. Determined to confront the new threat, the villagers devised a plan. They would lure Victor into a trap and use a ritual to bind him, hoping to uncover his true nature. That night, under the guise of a village feast, they invited Victor to join them. He accepted, his enigmatic smile never reaching his cold eyes. As the feast progressed, the villagers enacted their plan. Father Petru's successor, a young and devout priest named Father Gabriel, began the ritual, chanting prayers and incantations. The atmosphere grew tense as Victor's demeanor changed, his eyes narrowing with suspicion. Just as the ritual reached its peak, Victor revealed his true form. The air crackled with dark energy as he transformed into a monstrous figure, his pale skin stretching and darkening, his eyes glowing with malevolence. Shadows danced around him, and the villagers gasped in terror. Father Gabriel, undeterred, continued the ritual. The ground trembled, and a blinding light engulfed the clearing. Victor howled in pain, thrashing against the invisible bonds that held him. The villagers watched in awe as the light intensified, driving the shadows back. But just as they thought they had succeeded, a chilling laugh echoed through the air. Victor's form shimmered and split, revealing another figure within a dark entity with an ancient and cruel intelligence. The Varkalak had been merely a vessel for something far more sinister. "You cannot defeat what you do not understand," the entity hissed. "I am eternal, and your village shall be my domain." With a final, blinding flash, the entity vanished, leaving Victor's lifeless body behind. The villagers, stunned and horrified, realized that their true enemy was still out there, waiting, biding its time. Father Gabriel, shaken but resolute, vowed to continue the fight. He knew that the ancient texts held more secrets, more knowledge that could help them. The villagers fortified their defenses, their resolve stronger than ever. They would protect Magura, no matter the cost. As the years passed, the village remained on high alert. Strange occurrences continued, and the shadow of the dark entity loomed ever closer. The fight against the darkness was far from over, and the villagers of Magura knew that their greatest battle was yet to come. And in the depths of the Carpathian forest, the entity watched, its hunger for souls growing ever more insatiable, waiting for the right moment to strike again. Hatch, the shadow in the Carpathians. Part IV. The dark entity's presence lingered over Magura like a storm cloud, its shadowy tendrils reaching into the villagers' hearts. Father Gabriel, determined to end the nightmare once and for all, continued to study the ancient texts, seeking a way to banish the evil permanently. He was joined by Ileana, whose strange connection to the forest and the entity provided valuable insights. One day, as Father Gabriel and Ileana pored over the texts, they discovered a hidden passage that spoke of a powerful relic, the Heart of Light. This relic, said to be hidden deep within the Carpathian Mountains, possessed the ability to purify even the darkest of curses. The text described it as a crystal that radiated pure light, capable of severing the bond between the dark entity and the land. Realizing that this relic was their last hope, Father Gabriel and Ileana assembled a small group of brave villagers to embark on a perilous journey into the mountains. Among them was Dragos, the stranger who had once deceived them, now repentant and seeking redemption. Together, they ventured into the heart of the Carpathians, guided by the ancient texts and their unwavering resolve. The journey was treacherous. The mountains were shrouded in mist, and the air grew colder with each step. Strange noises echoed through the valleys, and shadows seemed to move of their own accord. But the group pressed on, driven by the hope that they could save their village from eternal darkness. After days of arduous travel, they reached a hidden cave described in the texts. Inside, they found the Heart of Light, a magnificent crystal that glowed with an ethereal radiance. As Father Gabriel approached the relic, the ground trembled, and the dark entity manifested once more, its monstrous form blocking their path. "You cannot take what is mine," it roared, its voice shaking the very walls of the cave. Father Gabriel, clutching the Heart of Light, stepped forward. "We'll not let you destroy our home," he declared, his voice filled with conviction. The entity lunged, but Ileana, drawing upon her connection to the forest, raised her hands and chanted an ancient incantation. The Heart of Light pulsed, and a beam of pure light shot forth, striking the entity and forcing it back. The creature howled in agony as the light pierced its dark essence. Dragos, seeking to atone for his past sins, joined his voice to Ileana's chant. The combined power of their incantations and the Heart of Light began to weaken the entity, its form flickering and fading. With one final surge of light, the crystal shattered the dark bonds, and the entity disintegrated into nothingness. The cave fell silent, and the oppressive darkness lifted. The villagers, exhausted but triumphant, knew they had succeeded. They carefully carried the Heart of Light back to Magura, its presence ensuring that the village would never again be plagued by the dark entity. Back in Magura, the villagers gathered in the church, where Father Gabriel placed the Heart of Light on the altar. Its gentle glow bathed the room in warmth and hope. The village, once haunted by fear and darkness, now stood united and free from the curse that had shadowed them for generations. Anka's sacrifice was honored, and her memory lived on as a beacon of bravery and selflessness. The villagers rebuilt their lives, always vigilant but no longer paralyzed by fear. They had faced the darkest of nights and emerged victorious, their spirits unbroken. Years passed, and Magura flourished. The forest, once a place of dread, became a symbol of resilience and renewal. The story of the Heart of Light and the brave souls who saved the village was passed down through generations, a testament to the power of hope and the triumph of light over darkness. And in the heart of the Carpathians, the land once tainted by malevolence now thrived, a reminder that even in the darkest of places, light could always find a way to shine through.